patients.
Steve, is it all just about the fact that we can do so much work overseas in China at so much cheaper levels? I mean, is it all about money? The fact that we've been importing so many important items like the active ingredients in our prescription drugs from China? You've got to explain this to me. And I recognize this is 3 administrations that we have been taking so much, importing so much of our critical products, whether it be the ingredients in prescription drugs or other things. Why are we still so reliant on China, and how are you going to change this?
Maria, this is a really terrific question, and I just want to sort of lay the ground for this. First of all, FDA doesn't have the authority to determine where things are manufactured. Now, we can encourage manufacturers to stay at home or to be in certain areas, but our job, once a manufacturer tells us they're going to go someplace and actually manufacture in another country, is to ensure the quality associated with that manufacturing. So we do inspections, we look at records, etc. However, this is an area that we identified many months ago as a critical risk factor for the country. And the point that you're making is excellent in that we really need redundancy in the medical product supply chain. That's incredibly important in prescription drugs. It's incredibly important with ventilators. It's incredibly important with masks. We cannot be dependent upon any single country. And we need what's called redundancy in our manufacturing. The other point I'd like to make is there's a whole concept of advanced manufacturing, bringing digital and modern approaches to manufacturing, particularly for drugs. In our most recent legislative information we gave to Congress, there was a lot of interest on the Hill and in the administration on this, and we got additional funds to be able to increase our technical assistance to manufacturers, because we believe that domestic advanced manufacturing is one way to provide that redundancy and reduce our dependency on other countries.
I just think that, look, it's pretty clear at this point that China is a competitor of the United States, and China wants to win and be number one in everything, in all of the important industries we are. So right now, the Chinese probably will be in a position later this summer to release a vaccine this fall. So the question is they're going to release all the patient data. They probably have begun to inject people. They don't care. They don't have any moral code. They'll just inject people and see if a vaccine works. Do we use this vaccine produced from China if it's released? So the question is, if the Chinese were to create a vaccine in 6 months or less, and they released it at scale to the U.S., is the FDA ready to quickly review that data to make this vaccine available to the United States?
We are prepared to look at any data around any medical product, and in particular vaccines, because that's obviously the answer for the next season, at any time that those data become available. What I can assure the American people is that we will look at all the data and science. It's our job to make sure that that data and science show us that a vaccine, in this particular case, is safe and effective. Let me just point something else out, Maria, and that is we have been working with vaccine manufacturers for weeks now. As you know, a candidate vaccine was put into clinical trial several weeks ago, and that is the beginning of the process. This is record speed for the development of a vaccine, but we'll look at data from any source, but we will ensure, this is our job, the safety and effectiveness of any medical products, including vaccines.
This is so important what you're just saying here, Dr. Hahn. I want to drill down on this, the prophylactis, because a lot of people are talking about prophylactis right now, a drug, a shot that you can get to give you a temporary immunity. Then we can just get back to work. I mean, how close are you in terms of finding the proper prophylactis right now so that we can get a shot, get immunity for 60 to 90 days so that we could eventually open up the economy again, even if it's temporary?
So, Maria, this is, again, and I have to tell you, we absolutely need to get back to work. We do need to do that. We need to balance that, as you said in your opening, with the public health issues. So one of the things that we've been working on now for the last 2 months is something called convalescent plasma. What that means is we take plasma from a patient who has recovered from COVID-19. It has all of the immunity in there, and then we can give it to someone who's sick. Once we determine that that's safe and effective, We then moved to something called hyperimmune globulin. And by the way, this is not sequential, one followed by the next. All of these are happening in parallel. And you're speaking about the hyperimmune globulin, where we can pool plasma from a lot of recovering patients, manufacture it, scale it up, and give it as a shot. It can work as a therapeutic, so as a treatment, potentially. And again, we have to study it, and we're doing this quickly. But also as a prophylactic. And that acts as a bridge to get us to a vaccine. So we're pushing hard on that particular end. And then one other component of this is that there are manufacturers, great companies in the U.S. that have a lot of experience in develop what we call monoclonal antibodies. So that's actually genetically engineered antibodies, different from taking it from a patient, but against the coronavirus. And we have been working with them for several weeks also to try to scale that up, again, as a bridge to get to a vaccine.
I see. And then in the meantime, you've got China threatening that they're not going to send us the prescription drugs that we need. Just a month ago, there was a story in state-run media from Beijing that said, well, if the U.S. keeps fighting with us over tariffs, maybe Beijing and the communist country will not send the prescription drugs that they need. So I ask you, Commissioner, what are we in short supply of right now? Are you worried, as commissioner of the FDA, that we're not going to get the active drugs that we need for our prescriptions, for our penicillin, etc.? What are we in short supply of right now?
So we have on our website a list of drugs that are in short supply, and that's been ongoing for some time, and it's a very complicated situation. Right now, we don't have any evidence that there's a drug in short supply because of anyone blocking the active pharmaceutical ingredients coming to us. But what I can tell you is that we are monitoring that very closely. I can also tell the American people that critical medications are available, but there are spot shortages because of increased demand. So we are working very closely with domestic and international suppliers to increase the supply of those. And this is an ongoing issue. I mean, every day we're looking at this. Demand changes every day. We are just helping the manufacturers ramp up to get the supply in. So far so good, but we're keeping a close eye on this, and there's a great deal of pressure on the supply chain, as you point out. And then my last point, Maria, is I want to go back to what I said before, which is that this is a long-term solution, but we absolutely must address the issue of redundancy in our manufacturing, and we must absolutely make an effort to have domestic manufacturing as well.